Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
Let's talk about everything you need to know about Social Security. Now, how am I going to talk about Social Security in a 15 to 20 minute video? Knowing that there are over 2,700 rules, knowing that there are over 500 different ways to claim your Social Security benefit. Well, I'm going to pull out what is most important that we typically see people are concerned about, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to try to make it really easy for you, right? Why read a whole book of Social Security rules when you can just listen to Joe Knows Retirement podcast and get it handed to you in 15 to 20 minutes? So hopefully today is going to be very educational. We do a lot of workshops in our community on Social Security, so we're going to take some of those main points that people have concerns or questions about and tie it in here. So first thing I wanted to discuss here and just get the elephant out of the room is Social Security going away? We get that question a ton. And the question, my answer to that is no, Social Security is not going away, and here's why. Yes, it's in trouble. It's in big trouble. Social Security Administration's website says that it will run out in 2033, I believe. And if you go to their website, you'll be able to see that. But that means that the trust funds will run out. Doesn't mean Social Security will run out, just the trust funds, which means people are still paying into it. People are still paying taxes on it. So there's still revenue coming in to fund it. It just means that changes have to be made, or the current amount they're sending out will have to be reduced, or other changes will have to be made. So what are some changes that could be made? Well, they could reduce everyone's benefit by 20%, and it's good to go moving forward. Do you think that's going to happen? I don't think so, because I think that's political suicide. I don't know if you saw what happened in Paris, but they changed the retirement age from 63 to 65, and everyone went crazy. So I don't expect that to happen. What I expect is there's going to be a multitude of changes, and that could be one of them is some reduction, but I actually think it's probably the least likely. I think what they're actually going to do is maybe change the retirement age for people coming up in the system. I think that they could make Social Security, instead of 85% taxable, they can make it 100% taxable once you receive that. They could raise the requirement for the income for Social Security to be taxed. So like while you're working, if you make, for example, $500,000, well, you don't have to pay taxes on that full $500,000 into Social Security. There's a certain limit. And so I could see them raising that limit so the higher income earners are having to pay more into Social Security, more tax into Social Security while they're working. So all of those are different changes that they can make to leave it in place. And so let's go back and see why is Social Security in trouble. And we start back in 1935 when Social Security started. And understand the life expectancy in 1935 was about 60 or 63 or 65 years old, right? It wasn't very long. Now people are living much longer than that. So a system made to pay out until 65 is now people living until 80, 85, right? And so that's why this is a big concern, because people just aren't living as long or people are living longer than what they were expected when they first started the system. So is a system built in 1935 the same system that should exist today? Is ultimately the question. Obviously, that just can't happen, and that is why we've seen so many changes throughout the years. And if you look at Social Security when it first started, it was a lot more generous than what it is today, and understand that the reason why is because not only are people living longer and in trouble, but also there's not as many people working and paying into it anymore. Back in 1935, there was 40 people paying in for every one retiree. Now that number is 3 to 1. There's only 3 people working for every retiree. So there's not enough people paying into it. And there's too many people, baby boomers, turning 65. There's 10,000 people that turn 65 every day. That's happened for the last 10 years. It's going to happen for 10 more, which means there's an influx into the system, which means what? Well, Social Security is going to be in trouble. It's going to be very stressed, and that's why we're seeing trouble with it. And so because of all that, that's why you hear all that buzz. It's going away. It's running out. Yes, it's in trouble, but it's going to be good. So just want to get that elephant out of the room. It's always a fun one there. So let's talk about this one. This is always the biggest question people have. When should I take Social Security? Now, I have to preface this. It's a funny joke, but it depends. Now, I have to watch saying it depends because we had a guy at one of our Social Security workshops come up to me and say, hey, Joe, I really like the workshop, but quit saying the word depends. He said, you're talking to a bunch of old folks here. So we have to watch using the word depends, but that's truly what it means of when the best time is. We just don't know. Now, if you tell me when you're going to die, I'll tell you the best time to take it. But how we decide the best time to take it is looking at many different factors. So one is your health. And so if you're going to live longer, maybe a reason to wait to take Social Security. So you can take Social Security anywhere between 62 and 70. So if you take it at 70, you're going to get a much lower amount. If you take it at 70, you're going to get a much higher amount. But you got to go 8 years without taking it, right? And then obviously you can take it anytime in between there. And so think about it. If you go, let's just do a math equation. So if you go 8 years without taking Social Security, so if you say, I'm not going to take it at 62, I'm going to take it at 70, you could potentially get nearly almost double what you could get at 62. Okay, so it's going to depend on your numbers, but it could be up nearly close to double. So if you get $2,000 at 62, maybe that means you get $4,000 at 70 or close to it. And so if that's the case, how long does it take for that $4,000 to continue to accumulate to make up for those 8 years of no payments? And the math tells us that that's right around 80 to 83, depending on how you do your calculations and factor in growth. And so if that's the case, what are you going to do? Are you going to live till 80 or 83? Or you're going to live below 80, or you're going to live above 83, right? And if you're going to live somewhere around there, the decision may not mean that much, right? So that's what you're ultimately looking at for one of the decisions to decide is what is your health? What is your longevity? What's your family health history? If you've got a lot of health problems, maybe you're taking it at 62 so you can get many of those checks in your pocket as possible versus if maybe you're going to live longer. So that's one part of the decision. But the other part is thinking about is the survivor benefit. So if you're married, understand that, hey, even if you have terminal illness, you may not want to take it at 62 because when you pass, your spouse will get the higher of the two. And if yours is higher, theirs drops off. And so if you're 62 with terminal illness, maybe you try to make it and wait until take Social Security as long as you can so that when you do pass, your spouse can get that higher amount is ultimately kind of the idea. So just think of that too, that survivor benefit can be a big play of when you take it. So we've seen some clients who they really just want to make sure their spouse is left with the most guaranteed income moving forward. Well, that's a reason to take it at 70. And so you have to really play that game. Another decision is the spousal benefit. The spousal benefit says that while you're living, your spouse could receive up to half of yours if, let's say, maybe they never worked and paid into Social Security, they could still take up to half of yours. Or maybe theirs is less than half of yours, then they can take half of yours. Now, if they if their Social Security is more than half of yours, well, they would just take theirs. Spousal benefit doesn't apply. But that can also play a part of when you look to take it too. So all of those are different factors of when to take it. Also understand, hey, if you need your money now, when are you going to take it? You're going to wait to take it in 10 years and go accumulate credit card debt, or you're going to take it right away? So those are all decisions. But one thing we always want to educate people on is, what if we waited till 70? And again, I've already talked through the pros and cons of that, but what if we look at it from a investment plan and a tax plan standpoint? So let's say that from a tax planning standpoint, you no longer are working. Let's say you retire, for example, at age 62. You can take your Social Security at 62, but if you take your Social Security, what happens to your income in retirement? Well, it starts to creep up a little bit because your Social Security is going to count as income, right? And the other consideration is, what if we don't take Social Security at 62? And what if we waited till, for example, 70? Well, now that gives us 8 years where our income is actually negative. And what do I mean by negative income? That means that the standard deduction, $27,700, up to $27,700 is tax-free income. So if you make $27,000, that's it, you don't pay any tax. So that's what I'm saying. Hey, a negative $27,000, you have $27,000 of room to take out money at 0%. So what if we didn't take Social Security? We maximize that standard deduction. We maximize maybe that 10% bracket, that 12% bracket, which can allow us to take out almost $100,000 or maybe more from our investments at very low tax rates. That could be a good idea, right? So that when you do get to the later years and you want to take out money, your Social Security will be nearly double the amount, and you won't have to take as much out from your investments to supplement it, and your RMDs, your required minimum distribution from your investments, won't be as much because there won't be as much there since you've used them early in your years. So that's just an idea. I'm not saying that's a recommendation and that everyone should do that, but we've seen a lot of people like that concept because then when you get to 70 and you take Social Security, all your Social Security could be tax-free. So Social Security is based on your provisional income, which means that if your income is low enough, you don't have to pay any tax on that Social Security benefit when you start taking it. Now, as soon as your income reaches that cliff and starts to go up and up and up, now your Social Security starts to become taxable as income. And so my point is that you don't have to have your Social Security pay tax on it. You can get it tax-free. So think about it. If you get a $3,000 a month check from Uncle Sam and your Social Security benefit, how would it feel to not have to pay any taxes on that? How would it feel to have that tax-free? Well, it's realistic if you do the right planning and be proactive instead of reactive. We talk about this a lot. You've probably heard some other episodes and some other videos on this concept because many people don't understand that their Social Security can be tax-free. Now, if you go back to 1980 and before, Social Security used to always be tax-free to those people who received it. But obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the rules change to keep this in place longer, and that's how one way they've done it is by making Social Security taxable. There's more revenue coming in from that. So what am I getting to summarize? What if we took from our investments now, early in retirement, started to drain those down, or maybe if we didn't even need that much income, what if we started to do Roth conversions in those lower brackets, moved it from an IRA to a Roth? And ultimately the point of this is, one, you get a higher Social Security by waiting until 70, but two is you're going to pay a lower tax bill over your lifetime by doing a strategy like this. And again, it doesn't have to be this extreme. Maybe instead of taking Social Security at 70, you take it at full retirement age, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe you retire at 60 and now you have 2 years in between 62 if you really are dead set at taking it at 62. I'm just trying to throw out some ideas and brainstorm. But again, remember, everyone's situation is going to be different there. By the way, when is the best time to take Social Security? Well, like I said, it depends. But when do most people take it? 62. So the majority of people take their benefit at 62. And does that surprise you with our culture? Right? Everyone wants their cake and eat it too, and they want it right now. And so that's why that's the average age there. So that's the biggest thing there. Again, we've talked about the survivor benefit. There's a concept called the widow's penalty, which refers to you losing one of the Social Securities if one spouse passes, but also the tax rates increasing. So you just want to be aware of that. It's not necessarily fully Social Security related, but just being prepared for that widow's penalty as you're doing your Social Security planning. If are going to take it 62 or 70, can be helpful there as well. So hopefully that will give you a wrap up and a better understanding of Social Security. I want to try to keep this video more brief just so you can get the main points that you need to know. And we'll do more advanced topics on Social Security as time goes, but just wanted to make sure you get the beef of what Social Security is and what you really need to be focused on. And just understand, Social Security is going to be here, so let's start planning for it. So there you go for another episode of Joe Knows Retirement. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on the next one.
Since we do not know your specific situation, none of this information can serve as tax, legal, insurance, or financial advice and may be outdated or inaccurate. The information comes from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed. This content is prepared for educational purposes only. If you need advice, please contact a qualified CPA, attorney, insurance agent, financial advisor, or the appropriate professional for the subject you would like help with. Peak Retirement Planning, Inc. is an Ohio-based registered investment advisor and able to offer advisory services in Ohio and in other states where registered or exempt from registration.